My name is Thandiwe Mbeki. I was born in 1998 in Soweto, South Africa. My mother, Namsa, was a nurse at the local clinic. She was kind and hardworking, always taking care of the sick and elderly in our community. My father, Sifo, worked as a taxi driver. He was strong and full of stories about the city. He knew every street and shortcut, and he loved telling me about the history of Johannesburg. I was the oldest of 3 children. My younger brothers, Themba and Sibusiso, were always full of energy, running through the dusty streets of our neighborhood, kicking a soccer ball made from plastic bags. We lived in a small house, but it was filled with laughter and love. My grandmother, Gogo Miriam, also lived with us. She was the heart of our home, always cooking delicious meals like pap and chakalaka and telling us stories about the past. Growing up in Soweto was not always easy. Our neighborhood was lively, with children playing outside and music drifting from houses. But there were also struggles. The streets could be dangerous, and many families faced hardships. Education was my escape. I loved school. My favorite subject was English, and I dreamed of becoming a journalist. I wanted to tell stories that mattered, stories that could change the world. Every morning, I walked to school with my best friend, Dorato. We talked about our dreams, our future, and the books we loved. Our teachers encouraged us to study hard, telling us that education was the key to a better life. But challenges were everywhere. Some of my classmates had to drop out to help their families. Others got caught up in the wrong crowd. I promised myself that I would not let anything stop me. Then, one day, everything changed. It was a normal afternoon when we heard loud noises outside. People were running. Smoke filled the air. Protests had erupted in our community. People were demanding better jobs and living conditions. My father rushed home, telling us to stay inside. That night, I could not sleep. I kept thinking about what I had seen, the fear, anger, and desperation in people's eyes. I realized then that I had to do something. I had to find a way to give a voice to those who had none. From that moment on, I became even more determined to pursue my dream. I started writing about my neighborhood, the struggles and the beauty and resilience of our people. My English teacher noticed my passion and encouraged me to enter a writing competition. I wrote a story about my grandmother and the strength of women in our community. To my surprise, I won. The prize was a scholarship to a university in Cape Town. Leaving Soweto was one of the hardest things I had ever done. I hugged my mother tightly, promising to make her proud. My father gave me one last ride in his taxi, telling me, "Never forget where you come from, Thanda. Our stories matter." University was a new world. The buildings were big, the classrooms filled with students from different backgrounds. At first, I felt lost. I missed home, the familiar sounds and smells of Soweto. But I kept writing. I joined the university newspaper and started reporting on important issues. I interviewed students, professors, and even politicians. I wanted to be the voice of my people. There were moments of doubt, times when I felt like giving up. But then I remembered my grandmother's words. "Keep going, my child. Your story is not finished yet." And so I did. Years later, I graduated with honors. My family traveled to Cape Town to see me receive my diploma. My mother cried, my father smiled with pride, and my brothers cheered. It was a moment I would never forget. Today I am a journalist. I write for a major newspaper in Johannesburg. I tell stories about my country, the struggles and triumphs of our people. I visit schools and talk to young girls, telling them that their dreams are valid, that they too can change the world. My name is Thandiwe Mbeki. I am from Soweto, and I will keep telling our stories for as long as I live. It all started when I was just a young girl growing up in the bustling streets of Soweto. I saw the struggles and triumphs of our people every day, and I knew that I wanted to tell their stories. So I worked hard in school and eventually landed a job as a journalist for a major newspaper in Johannesburg. This was my chance to make a difference, to give a voice to those who had been silenced for too long. I started writing about the issues that mattered most to our community, and I made it my mission to inspire and empower the next generation. I visited schools and spoke to young girls, telling them that their dreams were valid and that they too could change the world. I was determined to shed light on the injustices and inequalities that our people faced, and I used my platform to advocate for change. I wrote about the struggles of the youth, the lack of access to education, and the need for more opportunities in our community. Slowly but surely, I began to see the impact of my words. People started to pay attention, and our stories were being heard, but it wasn't always easy. I faced criticism and backlash from those who didn't want to hear the truth. But I stood my ground, knowing that our stories needed to be told. As time went on, I saw the power of storytelling. It was like a flame igniting in the darkness as more and more people joined the conversation. We organized community events, started grassroots movements, and worked tirelessly to create change. It wasn't long before we saw tangible results, more funding for schools, job opportunities for the youth, and a shift in how our community was perceived. It was a long and difficult journey, but it was worth it. Our voices were finally being heard, and our stories were making a difference. I knew then that storytelling was a powerful tool for change, and I was proud to have been a part of it.